guys, Brian from Boas here. Well, it's that time of year again. The boa breeding season has officially kicked off, and I have quite a few pairs breeding right now. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. I also wanted to give you guys a brief update on the remaining boa sales for 2025 as the shipping season is rapidly approaching its end. So please stay tuned, especially if you're planning on having a boa shipped in the near future. So first, apologies for the long time between videos. Just been really busy lately between the snakes, my other pets, my other hobbies, my family, and my day job. I just never have enough time. I'm sure you guys all know how it is. But you know, good to finally get the camera on the tripod and let the contents of my brain flow out to you. So this is not a 2025 boa. This is actually a 2024 baby Suriname. A lot of people have been commenting lately about how they're concerned that their baby Surinames are really small, or the boas are smaller than they expected. Baby boas are not really that big. So this guy is now, he's about 1.5 years old. So this is normal size for a Suriname that's 1.5 years old. You know, some of them do grow faster, but most of mine have been about this big. So he's maybe about 2.5 feet. So if your boa is growing slowly, especially if it's a true red tail, as long as it's eating and not regurgitating and putting on slow, steady growth, it's probably fine. But if you have any questions, you know, please reach out to me. And as I mentioned, a lot of people have been commenting lately. They order a dwarf boa and it gets there and they think it's really small. Well, dwarf boas are not big animals, so your baby boa is probably going to be about the size of, you know, like a baby corn snake or king snake. It's not going to be that much bigger than a baby colubrid. So that's normal. And they grow very slowly. But just really nice holdback Suriname from 2024. I'm going to have to, you know, do a video on these holdbacks pretty soon. And I've got so many holdbacks, especially the Surinames. I may have to make some holdbacks. You know, in other words, put them up available because I just got so many boas. I love them all. You know, it's hard not to hold on to them. So now to my shipping. I've been busy shipping the last few weeks. Hopefully you guys are doing well with your babies if you've gotten one recently from me. And as always, you know, reach out to me with any questions that you have about them. But we're getting pretty close to the end of the shipping season for 2025. Probably a couple more weeks left before it gets too cold. And so living in Northern California, it doesn't really get that cold here. Maybe there's some times in January where it's too cold to ship on my end. But for you guys that live in the northern half of the US, it's probably going to be pretty, you know, too cold to ship pretty soon here. Basically, the high temperatures have to be at least 38 to 40 Fahrenheit on my end. And on your end, I ship with a heat pack. The heat pack keeps the box temperature in the 60s or 70s. So, you know, people are worried that they're shipping when it's, you know, 40 degrees out. Maybe the lows are even colder than that. At night, it's getting into the 30s. Your boa is not going to be exposed to those temperatures. It's only going to be outside in the box for a few minutes as it's moved around. So you don't have to worry. But I do use heat packs if it's between around 40 and 70 or so. If it's above 70, it's, you know, too warm for the heat packs. But I can ship probably for another few weeks. It'll probably be early December when it just gets too cold. However, if you do want a boa and, you know, one really caught your eye, I can do a payment plan with a 25% down payment to hold the animal, and then I'll ship it to you as soon as it's warm enough in the spring. And depending on where you live, it's probably going to be warm enough again anytime between late February and early April. And I'll get that out to you as soon as it's safe for shipping your boa. I still have quite a few really nice boas from 2025, including more Surinames like this one, not quite as big as this one, as well as Qualkey and Tarahumara dwarf boas. I've got some VPI combo morph boas, and I've got some really nice Coops Pastel Colombian boas. So lots of really nice boas to choose from. And if you go ahead and get one from 2025, which is now anywhere between 6 and 8 months old or so, it's already got some size to it, and if I can't ship it to you for another few months, it's going to put on a little bit more size. And it's always advantageous if you're getting a boa, a baby boa, one that has a little bit more size. It's, you know, close to a year old, just more likely to acclimate and more likely to, you know, that you're going to have a positive experience. Some baby boas, particularly the Suriname red tails, can be like really delicate. So getting one that's a little bit older is definitely an advantage. And a lot of people, they're really excited about my upcoming boas that are going to be born in 2026. But as I mentioned, I have a lot of really nice boas now, and you have the advantage that it's a little bit older, rather than waiting for something that's newborn and, you know, isn't quite as sturdy as some of these older boas. I also want to update you guys on my start of boa breeding trials for the 2026 season. And I have some really nice pairs set up. This year I have about the same number of pairs as I had set up in 2025. So I expect about the same number of offspring, but we'll just have to see. There's a considerable amount of luck involved in breeding boas, and you can never really predict how it's going to go. One obvious type of boa that I'm going to be breeding, of course, is my Surinames. And as has been the case for the last, you know, 5 or 6 years, I have multiple Suriname pairs. And this one, as I mentioned, was one from 2024. But I expect to have Surinames from several different bloodlines. Fingers crossed I'll get some really nice litters. I also have some Venezuelan true red tails. I haven't been as lucky with those. But as of now, those are the only two types of boa constrictor, true red tail boas I'm working with, the Surinames and the Venezuelans. One of my favorite types of boas that I didn't have in 2025, I didn't have any pairs set up, but I am pairing them for 2026, are the Argentine boas. And this is a baby that was born in 2024. Actually, I call him a sub-adult at this point. These Argentines grow quite a bit faster than the Surinames. You can see how much bigger this one is than that Suriname I just showed you, even though they're about the same age. And these baby Argentines are doing really well. I really enjoy the baby Argentines. They're just really easy. You know, they're very robust and they're almost built like tanks. They're not like Surinames that, you know, can have some digestive issues. They're not like the dwarf boas that don't want to eat the thawed frozen, and, you know, sometimes can be tricky to get to even start feeding on live. These guys are just really ready to go as soon as they're born, and they just grow. Also, the temperament is great. I mean, these Argentines are about my most docile boa, and people think they have this reputation for hissing and for, you know, being, you know, defensive. That's just not true at all. They do hiss sometimes, but it's all a bluff, and I don't think I've ever been bit by an Argentine. So I'm really excited that I've got pairing of Argentines in 2026, because they are definitely one of my favorite boas, and I hope to have some babies born sometime in the you know, early summer, late spring. And speaking of dwarf boas, I have a really strong lineup of dwarf boa pairings for 2026. In addition to my Kralki and my Tarahumara, I have the third dwarf boa paired up, which is this one, the Cockerkey. Not the third dwarf boa that exists, but the third type of dwarf boa that I am working with right now. And I really like these Cockerkeys. I didn't pair up any in 2025, so 2024 is the last time I had them available. This is actually one from 2022. This is a holdback female who's now about 3.5 years old, so you can see how small she still is. But these Cockerkeys you don't see as often as some of the other dwarf boas, like the Tarahumara and Kralki. And superficially they're similar to the Kralki, but they tend to have darker colors, and they tend to be a little bit thicker and more robust, a little bit more muscular. But just a really cool boa. These guys only get to be about 4.5 feet or so. So, you know, great boa if you want one and you don't have a lot of space, but you want the boa constrictor experience in a smaller package. And finally, I also have several morph pairings for 2026, including IMG, which was one of my favorite genes I work with. This is actually a 2024 born IMG Hypo Jungle. You can see the dark pigment coming in there. But IMG is just a really cool gene, just really striking in terms of the phenotype, and it really combines well with a lot of other genes. So hopefully I should have some really nice IMG combos for 2026, born sometime probably in the early summer or late spring. And so this, of course, isn't exhaustive. Quite a few other pairings going on right now. Some of them I want to have as a surprise. So be sure to stay tuned to the channel. I'll do periodic update videos on my breeding trials about every month or so, just going over what's going on. And then, of course, when I start to have my babies born, probably sometime in the early spring, around March or April, I'll start to make videos about the litters. And so you guys can check out the baby boa litter processing videos where I take out the babies and check them out. You can even take a look at the babies right as they're born, see what's going to be available a couple of months later, and then you can let me know if any of them are of interest to you. You can be watching for when they go on sale. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Shoot me any questions or comments you might have. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.